Next, Derek Thompson, a staff writer at The Atlantic.
There are nearly 3,000 billionaires in the world. Do they hang on to all their riches, or do they share it for the greater good? Can the wealthiest people in the world put an end to extreme poverty? Joining me now to help answer these questions is Hugh Evans, the CEO of Global Citizen, and actor and Global Citizen ambassador Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Thank you both for being here. Hugh, let's start with you. What is Global Citizen, and what are you trying to do?
Global Citizen, and firstly, thank you, Derek, and thank you to the Atlantic Festival for having Priyanka and I with you today. Global Citizen is a worldwide movement committed to the eradication of extreme poverty by 2030. And our movement really is focused on mobilizing people who self-identify not as citizens of a member of a state or a tribe or a nation, but as members of the human race and people who are prepared to act on that belief to tackle our world's greatest challenges. So far, our movement has over 10 million members around the world, people who take action for the eradication of extreme poverty. And in the last 10 years, since we were founded, over $50 billion has been announced on Global Citizen stages in support of poverty alleviation efforts, whether that's the empowerment of girls and women, whether that's education, water and sanitation, food security, or environmental sustainability. This is really at the heart of Global Citizen's mission, mobilizing citizens to call on world leaders to make multi-billion-dollar pledges to achieve the end of extreme poverty by 2030.
Priyanka, you have a very busy career outside of the work you're doing with Global Citizen. What drew you to this endeavor?
The fact that, first of all, again, hi, Derek, and hi, Atlantic Fest. Thank you for having us. I think what drew me to Global Citizen was the fact that every single person around the world can create a movement, and anyone who feels responsible for the rest of the world can tangibly do something, can be part of something which is so large and mobilizes so many people to do so much more. It's been said before, with privilege comes responsibility, right? And I think that is so true, that it's really important that people create larger tables for those who have not had a seat on that table. And that is going to require mobilizing, people with privilege, which could be, my mother used to tell me when I was a kid that no matter where you are in the world and no matter where off that you are, somebody's worse off than you. And when you think about people who live in extreme poverty, that's unimaginable. The basic rights of food, clean water, and just education doesn't exist in a large diaspora around the world. And it's the responsibility of countries and individuals with privilege to be able to contribute to eradicating that.
Thank you. And Hugh, back to you. How exactly does this platform enable people to participate in a global effort to get, say, billionaires to donate their money or to help eradicate global poverty? How exactly are people using this platform and this movement?
Well, one of our most important initiatives that we launched together with Priyanka is called Give While You Live. And this is a campaign that we launched also in partnership with Forbes magazine, but it's focused on encouraging the world's ultra high net worth community. As you mentioned, the almost 3,000 billionaires on the planet with a collective net worth of over $10 trillion to actually give their wealth while they're still alive. Because what we've seen in the past based on wealth rankings, and Forbes has over 40 years as the gold standard track record of measuring this, we've seen that many ultra high net worth individuals have pledged their money to a donor advised fund or to a foundation, and it sits there stagnant, earning interest, and doesn't actually have an impact. And so when we launched this campaign, we said we want to change the way we measure philanthropy as actually not just dollars that have been pledged to a foundation, because that just makes the foundation wealthy, but actually, is it getting to the end recipient? Is it getting to the poorest of the poor or to a great charity that is at the forefront of making a difference? Because if you can measure that, you can change the world. And so that's why we worked with Forbes this year to change the way the philanthropic ranking worked. And then we've been mobilizing our Global Citizen members to call on them to encourage other philanthropists to step up. And we're starting to see more and more wealth managers consider the new Forbes ranking as the gold standard of what they should be doing when they consider their philanthropy in the future. with the ultimate goal being that more people will give to tackle the world's biggest problems right now.
Priyanka, I am personally, as a journalist, extremely interested in persuasion and figuring out not just how to change people's minds with new information, but how to motivate them to do more good, to help assist in the global sort of process of producing progress. How have you found, as a global citizen ambassador, how have you found success in pushing people to change their minds about this issue? What works to get people to really see the scale of this problem and the way that they can participate in solving extreme poverty in the world?
I think the biggest thing that I have seen, especially with Global Citizen, is that power is in numbers. When you have a sheer amount of people around the world writing into heads of states or leadership or heads of large conglomerates to be able to give large amounts of money, donate large amounts of money for the world's most pressing problems. I mean, we need it more now than ever. We're not only going through a health crisis, we're going through an education crisis, job crisis, climate crisis, racial justice crisis. It is this moment that we need to make sure that we get so much more to be able to end the world's problems, or at least contribute in trying to fix it for the next generation. And the urgency is so pressing that the only way to do it is to have people mobilized in large numbers, which Global Citizen does so well. Each and every one of us as citizens of the world have a responsibility, and we can use our voices to make sure that we hold people accountable.
It's just a straightforward fact that no billionaire can conceivably spend all of his or her money in their lifetime. And that would at least lead me to think that it would be relatively straightforward to persuade them to give a lot of their money away. But Hugh, is there a valid argument that you've heard on the part of billionaires that there are other ways that their money can be more useful? That yes, they say maybe donating money to charities and trying to end extreme poverty, that's a priority. But do some of them say there are other priorities and I want to invest in those?
Well, I mean, there's a starting point that some ultra high net worth individuals don't want to give any money away to anyone, and their argument is often that they believe that either they earned it or that they have created enough jobs for people, and that job creation alone is their contribution. That's the strongest argument I've ever heard. But my view is that when you are worth tens of billions of dollars and you can't possibly buy another Ferrari or another Porsche, another Lamborghini or another island, then you have this moral responsibility to give back. And I think that moral responsibility, most people would agree, particularly Americans who are some of the most generous people on the planet, that everyone should be giving something to their neighbor. And whether that means that you're giving to support your local college or your alma mater, or you're giving to support a hospital, or you're giving abroad to support the most vulnerable wherever they may be on this planet. Everyone, I think, believes that you can't ignore the immense suffering. And I think Priyanka put it so well earlier when she said that right now the world is facing so many parallel crises at once. When you've got not just a health crisis with COVID, but an enormous economic crisis with so many people out of work, coupled with an education crisis and the climate crisis, as we're seeing in Northern California with the bushfires, there's so much need on the planet right now. And when that need is accentuated, it actually gives people the opportunity to step into that and provide leadership. And I think people are looking for leadership, whether it's from government or from the private sector, or in this case, from ultra high net worth individuals who can step into that void and say, you know what, I'm going to use the immense wealth that I've been given for good, and I'm going to apply it and make a real impact in this world, not just once I die, but right now.
Priyanka, I wonder when you're having conversations at organizations, you're having conversations at places like Davos, I wonder if people sometimes come up to you and say the problems that you're trying to solve, like say extreme poverty, aren't just problems of money. They're matters of institutions. We can't end global poverty just by having rich people give a little bit more money to charity. It's more complicated than that. We have to look at the problem of reforming institutions in low-income countries. How do you carry on with that sort of conversation when they're essentially complexifying this argument for just giving money away?
It is complicated, Derek. You're right. And they would probably be right in saying that. But just because it is a complex problem, do we not even take one step in that direction? Do we just let it be complicated? I think giving large amounts of money is what will help alleviate the problem at least. And yes, there is a lot of complications that will have to be sorted, reforms that need to be created, and people will work towards that. We are working towards that as global citizens for sure. We push governments to change laws. We push rule makers and lawmakers to be able to create opportunity. So everything has to go hand in hand. But because the need is so urgent right now, I think it's extremely important to implore people who are high net worth individuals to impart with a little bit of their wealth. I'm not a billionaire, but I'm very proud to be able to tell my children that I have done that bit. And every single person who has the privilege to have a home, have be able to feed their families, and have the luxury of having security in a time where it's so unprecedented. I think that's our privilege, to take care of someone or a part of society that we can better. And I think that recognition is a social responsibility, which Hugh was talking about, that is on high net individuals in a big way, but it's also on each and every one of us as citizens of the world.
Priyanka, I'm interested, you went to the heart of global capitalism at the World Economic Forum in Davos earlier to make this pitch. How was that pitch received? What did you hear after you spoke to that extremely high net worth audience, an important audience, about this message?
I mean, I have to say, and you can corroborate this a little bit more with me, but I have to say that we got a lot of positive feedback. We got a lot of people curious, and we got a lot of contributions. And I think that it was overall an extremely successful trip, even though it could always get better.
Yeah, and I think Priyanka's exactly right. We've seen an enormous response from ultra high net worth individuals since the World Economic Forum. For example, the Wallace Global Fund decided to be part of this campaign, and they've announced that they're going to be giving away 20% of their corpus during this financial year, which is an extraordinary undertaking. And it's the first time they've done so as a result of Give While You Live. We also heard a really interesting story the other day. We had a phone call from a wealth manager who said that one of his ultra high net worth clients only scored a 1, which is the lowest ranking on our new ranking. And this particular client said he never wants to score a 1 ever again. And if he scores a 1 next year, he's going to be extremely disappointed and may fire that firm. So I think that this is an example of where a ranking like this is changing culture. It's actually encouraging billionaires to give more. That's exactly what we'd hoped would happen. We're seeing great billionaires like Mackenzie Bezos Scott step up, and she just made a whole bunch of anonymous gifts this year, which will show through in her ranking next year. We also saw that great article you may have seen the other day, Chuck Feeney, who was the billionaire founder of Duty Free. He officially filed for bankruptcy this week because he wanted to be one of the first billionaires that gave away all of his money by the time he died, and he officially succeeded in that this past week, which is an extraordinary example of generosity. Now, we're not expecting every billionaire to be as generous as Chuck Feeney, but even someone like Warren Buffett scored a perfect 5 ranking because he's given so much away. So I think if everyone gave like Warren Buffett or Chuck Feeney, we would solve extreme poverty 10 times over. And so these are not, and to your point earlier around institutions, you can actually invest money into strengthening institutions. If you want to fight COVID, the best way is to strengthen the health system, which itself is an institution, or to reform it politically. And we encourage people to advocate for political reform because that's a great way to strengthen democracy. All of these things work hand in hand.
That's great. Hugh Evans, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Derek. Thank you.